Here's me. Hi, everybody. We'll give this poll about 2 or 3 minutes, so you should be able to buzz through it pretty quickly. First poll question is, what type of organization are you? The second poll question is, what is your event's primary theme, goal, or purpose? So are you cause-based? Are you education, social improvement? Are you pure entertainment? We do have people still joining pretty consistently the webinar, so that's why we haven't started the programming yet. Give us 1 or 2 minutes and we'll be right into there. Again, if you joined since the first time I gave this overview, if you have any questions throughout, please fire them away in the Q&A. And if we don't get to them during the session because it's a very compact amount of time, we'll be sure to follow up with you after. By the way, when I end the webinar, if you have just a minute, we have a 1-question short answer survey after, which is, what other sessions would you like to see? What other content would you like? That'll appear in your browser right after we end the webinar, and it'll also be in a follow-up email. All right, going to give it 30 more seconds, and then we're going to get started. Looks like about 2/3 of you have done the opening poll at this point. So we're going to give that just 1 more minute. All right, here we go. So Vicki, breaking down, well, first of all, I'd like to introduce Vicki. And Vicki, you're on mute.
Hey, there we go.
Perfect.
That should be better. Hi.
So Vicki, I'm going to share the poll results from everyone if you'd like to take a look.
Oh, fantastic.
Looks like about half the folks are cities, and about 88% of folks are focused on family entertainment. We have a pretty even mix of causes concentrated around health and well-being, quality, education, and youth seem to be the popular 2 out of the other themes.
Great, that's wonderful. This is perfect.
All right, the stage is yours.
Well, welcome. My name is Vicki Higgins. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm so honored to have been asked by CalFest to share a little bit of information with you about sponsorships. And the topic of this talk today is how to come back from COVID. So I think a couple of my team members are on the chat, and we'll keep an eye on any questions that you have, and Michael will as well. But one of the things that I want to talk about today is, this is the first part of a 3-part series. So today we're going to talk about some foundational pieces that I'm seeing right now when I work with brands. So let's get started. I own a company called CXP Agency. It stands for Connection Partnerships. And our whole goal is connecting brands with communities for good. And one of the things that I think is really important as we go through this agenda today is, you have to know what your sponsor's new strategy is. It is a new world, and we're going to learn a lot about that, how brands are viewing that. So we're going to talk about your sponsor's strategy, your purpose and value, creating a solution for your community, and how to add a virtual component to your event. So let's get going. This is a little bit of my team. We all work with sponsors, and I'm really blessed to have an awesome team to work with me. We're here to support you guys, and we're happy to answer any questions. So I just wanted to say hi to them. So first and foremost, I just want to clear up some terminology. Sponsorship is the cash or in-kind fee paid to a property, which would be you, in return for the access to the exploitable commercial potential associated with that property, which is the access that that brand has to your audiences. So it's really valuable. It's much more valuable in a lot of cases than even advertising. What sponsorship is not like a advertising partner or a media partner or a corporate giving person or a philanthropy type of spend. So I just want to create clarity there. We have expertise in sponsorship, and that's where the brand is going to pay you because they want access to your audience. So just keeping clear. CXP agency, just a quick little couple slides about me and the company. We work with venues, we work with parades, fairs, festivals, and events, and we also work with brand partners. And most exciting, we did the naming rights deal on the Toyota Arena in Ontario, California in July of 2019. So we're super proud of that. We work really closely with the Living Desert Zoo and Gardens, with animal conservation and education. We're so proud of that relationship. We've done work with Hollywood Bowl, House of Blues, Fox Theater. We've most recently worked also with Hot August Nights, and we're still working with them. They did a great quick pivot, so I'll share a little bit about their story. We work with Cruise and Reunion, we work with the Women's Conference, Palm Springs Festival of Lights Parade, as well as a lot of dining. And I spent the first half of my career in sports with the Indiana Pacers, and then on the brand side for an airline. And then the second half of my career, I was with a number of different tourism organizations. So if you're with a city or with a tourism organization, I'm so happy you're here. I really understand, some of the things that you're facing, and I'm excited to share some ideas with you on how we can work together to move ahead. A few of the brand partners that we work with, Toyota, obviously, but I'm not going to read through these. Obviously, we work with a number of different brands. This is just a sampling of them. So now let's get into this. Obviously, the pandemic has really changed the world as we know it. And we want to ask you this quick little poll too. But when we're looking at ushering in a new reality, we don't know what is going to happen in the coming months. I wish we did. I wish there were a crystal ball, but we just don't know. And so even as some of the restrictions begin to relax, there's still a lot of uncertainty. So one thing that we know for sure, and that is the fact that digital is the new normal. And if you have done digital events, I'd love to hear from you. We're going to talk a little bit about virtual events, but I really want to set the stage for the reason why. So if you could, answer those questions, and then we'll move that poll. I'm not going to stay on this very long. We obviously know that the impact of the pandemic has been tragic on the events industry, as well as our whole globe, music and fairs and festivals and everything. So you've seen enough of that. I'm not going to stay on that, but let's talk about how we come back. How do we come back and come back stronger? This is something that I'm really passionate about, and I think we can really come up with some ways to work together. Edelman Trust Barometer 2020 did a special report on trust and the pandemic. One of the things that came out of this is the fact that people actually trust the communications that are coming from their employer even more so than what they're seeing in the news and on social media. And the employers, these big brands and these big companies, are definitely not taking that lightly. They have made major shifts to take on that responsibility. So taking a look at I'm going to give you 4 tips. So 4 tips is all we're going to cover today. The first thing is you need to know what your sponsor's new strategy is. So if you have existing sponsors, whether they have hung in there with you through this, or if they are trying to figure out what's next. But the biggest thing is for you to know your sponsor's new strategy. When we're looking at brands making decisions on how to make up for lost revenue, they're also moving their funds around quite a lot. 70% of ad buyers, so that's these big brands, your sponsors, they have already adjusted or paused their planned ad spend. Majority, so 63% of the ad buyers have changed the messaging that they're sending into market, which has moved to mission-based marketing, up 42%, and cause-related marketing, which is up 41%. This is really critical because if you are a fair or festival or an event and you are aligned with a specific mission or a cause, this is great news for you. If you are not, then I'm going to give you some tips on how to align with one so you can make sure you're really staying relevant to your sponsors. I'll share a few examples. Coke announced some strategic steps on August 28th to reorganize their entire company to better align with their Beverages for Life strategy. They also contributed $500 million to the National Minority Supplier Development Council, and they instituted an entire job readiness program impacting 4.7 million kids with the Boys and Girls Clubs. So if your organization is aligned with minorities, is aligned with Boys and Girls Clubs, that's great news for you. It would be a good thing to be sure to include in your proposal to Coca-Cola. When we look at State Farm, they made major changes right away. They knew people were not driving to their work, so they decided to refund a lot of money. This is a great story as well, because when you're talking about a good neighbor and neighborhood relief and bringing community together, it's something that State Farm is really passionate about. General Mills is doing an entire rebuild of their marketing strategy. They launched, they've had box tops for education, but they actually started rewarding teachers for at-home learning programs. They also went out very strongly with Serena Williams in an equal justice campaign. And then obviously they are food. So they were doing a lot of feeding families with LeBron James, and they also did a number of funding efforts for food banks. So this would be something to keep in mind if you're aligned with any of those type of efforts. Lowe's, they created a DIY home front lawn things that you could do at home to honor and thank the frontline heroes. They've also been doing a lot of workshops and online how-to guides. And then they're really passionate about a kids DIY program to help them as they're trying to navigate this new normal too. So you, as the property, you want to really communicate with your sponsors. You want to know what their new strategy is, because almost everyone is changing their strategy right now. So you don't want to just sit there and hope that you can renew them. You want to be in communication with them. You want to get on a call, be on a Zoom, talk with them, learn from them, and just listen to them and see what they're doing, because they are probably doing some things for the community, for employee engagement, for social justice. And, if you can extend a message that they already have, it's going to be a much better opportunity for you to maintain or grow your sponsor dollars with that partner. You want to understand what their mission is and their cause. Like, you want to see what they're really passionate about and what they're doing specifically in your community. This goes for not only your current sponsors, but sponsors that might be on your hot list to bring on as new sponsors. You also want to look at your reopening plan. You may be open already, which is awesome. You may have to communicate what your reopening plan is. Are you doing a virtual element? Are you doing a drive-through program, kind of a hybrid, or are you doing a live event? So you want to just stay in touch with your sponsors and let them know what is happening. And that way they are the first ones in the know of how their relationship can benefit from their sponsorship with. Then a lot have contracts already. They might be 2 or 5 or 10-year contracts. It is the perfect time to renegotiate those contracts. When you show that you're caring about that sponsor and about what they're wanting to accomplish in the market and their new purpose, you can build that into a new agreement. Granted, we don't know what the future is going to hold, so there may be future addendums, but one of the addendums that you should definitely include is an addendum around COVID. If your event is planned for next May or June, and for some reason it has to be canceled again, you want to have a clause in there about how you both will work together. You don't want to just come at the partner with that information. You want to talk with them about how would they prefer to do it. Is there something that you can do year round to help extend their message? And that way you have a much more of an opportunity to keep those sponsorship dollars, even if your event has to be canceled. So hopefully it doesn't. Hopefully you can have a live event and a hybrid version with some virtual components. But you just want to really keep in communication with them and just continue that commitment and get their commitment to continue to support you. One of the things that's going to be really helpful to you also is to know your position in the market and your value. I think a lot of times fairs and festivals are like, oh, poor us, please give us money because we just need a $5,000 sponsor or a $10,000 sponsor. And right now is the time that you need to stand up and know your value and your purpose. So no matter if you're a venue, an event, a fair, a festival, a parade, whatever, I want you to really know that you have a strong value. A lot of times you are considered entertainment and not critical to the community, but this is the time that you need to stand up and talk about how important you are in the community. We need to advocate to save our fairs and festivals and events. You guys are losing money. We know that. And the reason that we have to really band together in this communication is that you are very critical and very important to our communities. You have to know your purpose. If you're a nonprofit, you may already have your lane and you know what your purpose is in the community. If you don't, it is time to put the stake in the ground and find a purpose and a mission and how you can do something to bring your community together. The other thing is you do have the right connections to reimagine the future of your community. Our communities are at battle right now, and it's going to take us banding together with our partners to make some change. And so the narrative around your value and your purpose is way beyond entertainment, and it's really about how you survive, but really how you thrive in a new world. And so I just want to give you some confidence around the purpose. You guys are communicating with City Hall, with the governor, with the mayor, with all of the political officials for your fair, festival, or event or venue. You are working with the tourism organization. You are working with educational institutions, colleges, universities. You're working with hundreds, if not thousands, of volunteers. You are working with clubs like Kiwanis and Rotary and Lions and Optimist. You are working with Future Farmers of America. You're working with chambers of commerce. You're working with influencers. You're working with specialty groups like the African American Chamber or the Women's Chamber. And you are there to really unite the community and bring unity. So when you look at all of the people that you're communicating with, no matter if your fair, festival, event, or venue is open or not, you have a great power in the community. And that is something that brands will really listen to. Your purpose is going to be what guides you, especially to come back from COVID. Your mission is going to be something that drives you. The vision is what you aspire to in this new world. And the impact that you can create to come back from COVID is really what's going to matter. And it's going to be what matters to your brands. So when we look at this little example here of your brands like a Coca-Cola or an IBM, when they combine with you, your fair, festival, event, or venue, and you're both working toward a common purpose in your community, then you have the opportunity to really amplify the message. It's not you doing it alone anymore. It's them talking about how important this is. So let's just say, for example, you have a fair or a festival like a state fair. If you're doing a drive-through fair, maybe your purpose becomes something around sustainability. And now your drive-through is encouraging people to recycle. So now you're partnering with Coke and their sustainability efforts and encouraging people to bring and drop off recyclable products as they come and do your drive-through fair. If you're doing something with, I know Toyota Arena does Chips for Kids. So if you're doing something to do a toy drive for kids, that's awesome. Just help that partner amplify the message and you amplify the message, and you can do some great things in your community. So when we're thinking about our communities, the step 3 here is creating a solution. What does your community need? You guys are the interweaving organization that can bring everyone together around a common cause. So think about what your purpose is, what your brand purposes are, and how you can really create a solution in your community. And when you're doing that, you're actually creating a partnership. So sponsorships get a bad rap sometimes because everyone thinks like, oh, the sponsor is just paying money so we can have our event and so they can have some signs or banners up. But really what we need to do now, and the new way of sponsorship, is really creating collaborative partnerships. So the collaboration is key, having those conversations, and it might take multiple conversations to get to where you land on an aligned goal. But then that's going to increase the performance both for that brand, and it's going to increase the performance for your event, fair, or festival, or venue. You plan together, you do a lot of teamwork, you bring your teams together on how we can really amplify this message and get it going. And then you also just really work together to create success. So we want to create win-win partnerships, no longer these one-sided deals where the sponsor is just giving us some money to run our event. Now, we really want you to step up, own your purpose, and really talk to your sponsors with that confidence and authority that this is something very valuable that they cannot miss out on. Now, the thing that's a benefit to you is whether you are a city and you are running a number of different events, fairs and festivals or parades, or whether you're a venue or whether you're a nonprofit, you now have access to new budgets. This is super important. We saw at the very beginning of this that sponsors are changing the way that they're spending, and huge percentages, 42%, are moving to more mission-based messaging. So this is great news for you, because now you have access to not only what they used to spend with you, which is sponsorship or marketing or advertising, but now some of those funds have been reallocated. So they're moving toward corporate social responsibility. So if you have an effort that's around social justice, if you have something that is around women's rights or equality for LGBTQ, or if you're doing something around sustainability or clean oceans, there are some great opportunities that your event can now tap into the budget of corporate social responsibility. It's a big budget for a lot of brands, and it's something that is being newly funded in a very big way. The other one is community relations. Obviously, we saw earlier how you are connected in the community in so many ways. If you can really position that and show your sponsors how you're connected in the community and what your purpose is and why this is so important to your community, then you have the opportunity to also get funds from the community relations budget of many companies. The other one is human relations. So now when we're looking at people working from home, the HR part of many companies, they're trying to figure out how to keep employees engaged. And so if you have an element in your sponsorship proposal that can talk about things you can do to engage their employees, whether it's volunteering or coming to build a home or for Habitat for Humanity or doing something in the community, if you can do something and show how you can engage their employees, you also have the opportunity to tap into some budget related to the HR budget line item. And then there is charitable giving. It typically doesn't line up in a sponsorship, but it can be a portion of that sponsorship. So I just wanted to show you a few of those ways that you can add funding and find new ways to bring on funding during this time. I think it's definitely the way that we need to go, because we see all the brands making these changes, and we're also taking a note from some of the big organizations as well. If you're stumped and you don't know, what your purpose is or what you want to do in your community, or this is a great tip. So this is your cheat sheet, basically. So this is the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. So this is like a huge thing that major companies are all over. So I think thousands and thousands of companies all around the world are aligning with these goals. You might just pick one of these, but one or two of these, whether it's sustainability or clean oceans or zero hunger or education or social justice, whatever is important to you in your event or organization, this is something that would definitely be a piece to include in your sponsorship and to talk about like why this is important in your community. If you can be the change in your community, then you have a purpose to start with. So I wanted to set that foundation and make sure that that all makes sense, because sponsorships are changing in a major way right now. And I think it could be for the better. I think if we can align with the brands, use that corporate funding to make our communities better, then we have a great opportunity to move forward. I'm going to talk a little bit about virtual events. So my fourth tip is to talk about virtual events. Obviously, many of you have live events, and that's how we do our, concerts and family shows and sports teams and fairs and festivals and parades. But, one of the things that we are seeing is digital is here to stay. There can be some benefits to digital. If you start your virtual event or your live event or your hybrid, if you start with your purpose, that is going to be a key driver. And if you start with your purpose and you're aligned with your sponsors, then that is definitely going to be something that can really help you have a successful virtual event. I'm not going to talk to you too much about like how to do a virtual event, but I'm going to talk to you more about the why. So one of the reasons to do an event is to engage fans. Obviously, if you're not able to have your events and you want to still keep your people engaged, it's a great way to keep them engaged online. You also can bring value to your sponsors because now you are marketing and communicating and talking with people, and you might even have more people attend, a virtual event because there are no boundaries. So bringing value to sponsors is another added benefit of considering going virtual. You can also increase your ticket sales. Obviously, they may not be the same as what they would pay for a live event, but when you have the opportunity to have a stronger reach without borders, then you have a great opportunity to increase your ticket sales. And then you can also, obviously, you're not having a physical event, and so that reduces your carbon footprint, which is always a great story and message, especially for those sponsors that are into sustainability and really aligning with that purpose. This reduces some of your costs, of course, venue, staffing, security, all of that. And then you can boost this to new audiences. So if you are aligning with your purpose, like social justice, you can now start, marketing and advertising and reaching people who are passionate about that cause and bring them to your event. They maybe wouldn't have known about your event prior, but now when you're aligning with purpose, it really opens up a whole new window of people that can support your event and your cause. And then obviously you can expand your reach without a geographical barrier. So I think that is a great opportunity. And, like I said, I wish we would know a crystal ball of what the future holds. I hope that you can have your venues open soon. I hope you can have your parades, your fairs, festivals, and events. I would love to come and see them all. I love that stuff. It's why I'm in this business. But right now, I think that we all just have to be real, and we have to know that there's a virtual component to where we're going. So I'm going to have Michael talk a minute because I want to give you a couple of examples, things to look at for virtual events. And Michael runs Event Hub, which is hosting this event. And he has a really cool virtual event resource guide. So Michael, I'll let you talk about that.
Thank you. I know we're up against time, so I'm not going to take up a ton of time, but I will say with virtual event platforms, the most important thing is that you're able to deliver compelling content, whatever that means for your organization, and also to be able to deliver compelling sponsor deliverables that are integrated with the content. So make sure whatever platform you're using, obviously I'm biased about ours, and I just dropped a link in the channel if you want more about that, but make sure that you're able to do content in a way that also is partnered very well with whatever sponsor deliverables that can be integrated around that content.
Thank
Keep it
you.
short and sweet.
I think it's great. Thanks so much. I appreciate it. The other thing that we did with Hot August Nights, I think Mike's on here. Hot August Nights had to postpone their August event, and you would think it would be tough for a car show, classic car show, to be able to go online, but they did something really creative. They moved very quickly. Their board was super open to having ideas around this. And they had, Chevy sponsored by Champion Chevrolet, Ford sponsored by Visit Reno Tahoe, and they had the car teams compete against each other to raise money. And just in about 7 days, they were able to raise $36,000, which is really awesome. They used a platform called FunDuel. It's a really cool platform that allows teams to compete to raise money for good. A couple of other examples was a gala that wasn't able to happen live and in person. So this gala for epilepsy took place on FunDuel. They raised $115,000. And then obviously FedEx and St. Jude, they were up for nearly 2 months and they raised $300,000 for St. Jude. But a great platform all in all. I just wanted to give you a couple of those ideas of things to look into for virtual ideas of ways to raise funds for your event. And then I have just 4 key takeaways, what we talked about, which was knowing your sponsor's strategy. Things are changing in the brand world. You guys have to stay on top of it and really just communicate with your sponsors and potential new sponsors. Know your value and purpose. I think that's how we're going to thrive and come back from COVID. And then create solutions for your community. That's where it's at. And then add a virtual component, because I think it's going to really bring value to you and to your sponsors. So obviously we are on all of the channels. Feel free to check us out, cxpagency.com. My name is Vicki Higgins. My email is here if you have any questions. I'm so grateful to CalFest. CalFest is a wonderful organization. If you are not already a member, please consider joining. It's a fantastic organization. They bring all this awesome free content to you. And this is the first of a 3-part series. Next week on the 28th, we have a really great special guest from the Indy 500, the 500 Festival, and some great things that they are doing virtually. And I want to share some additional examples with you then. And then on November 6th, we have a special guest, Jim Andrews. He was from IEG, and he has a lot of wealth of knowledge around sponsorships and what you can do as a city or a venue or an event to really grow your sponsorships. So I hope you can make it to these other couple of talks that we're doing for the sponsorship series. And I think we might have a couple minutes for questions. So I want to just end it there.
Yeah, so we're out of our official time, but if anyone would like to stay on and ask some questions, we can definitely do that. And then I've also dropped, if you're a LinkedIn person, then CalFest has a brand new LinkedIn page. If you could check out the link in the chat, please follow the page. We'd love to support as well if you're a member, any of your event news, and post that. And this would be a great resource for you to find out upcoming education opportunities.
Cool, thank you. Well, thank you, Michael. I'm not sure if we had...
No questions jumped through, but I think that's a testament to how well thought through the content was. That means we covered all the important bases. With that. For sure. We do have one question in the chat. So Caitlin has asked, we tried to convert many of our events from live to virtual this past year. Do you have any recommendations for retaining sponsors when you do make that pivot?
Yeah, I mean, if your event is a one-time event, try to find things that you can do all year for your sponsors. One of the things that we talked about is just really being able to be in communication with your sponsors, know what they need, what is valuable to them, and then doing a recap report for, even if your event isn't happening, hey, here's what we're doing. Here's the social media. Here's the communications. Here are our online summits. And here's how we're communicating your message. So if you can do like a quarterly recap or a monthly touch base with your sponsors, it's a great way to retain funds and keep them on board. The other thing to do is to try and find out if they have an already existing message that you can help them extend. So if you're doing virtual events and you're able to, let me see the question again, convert many of our events from live to virtual.
Pivoting the sponsorships, like how to retain the sponsor fees when you're doing the virtual conversion.
Absolutely. I mean, we've seen so many things, you know, if you can pivot and do a virtual event and you can add value all year, it enables you to keep a lot more of those funds. If the sponsor is saying, hey, it's a virtual event and it's not obviously a live thing, we want to, we want a refund or we want some of our money back, just try and encourage them to see if they can roll that to another year, or if you can do more virtual events during the year that would help them keep engaged with you. This comes right back to their purpose. What do they need? What is their purpose? What is their mission? And how can you help them extend that message? And that comes from you really knowing your value and saying, hey, we can communicate with all of these people and let people know how that, how important this is. And so, really working together and collaborating with those sponsors is the best thing. But if you can extend to more virtual events so they have a little bit more bang for their buck, that's always great. And if nothing else, just try and do the roll to next year.
And then another thing that we've seen be very successful is actually offering them a dedicated surprise and delight type of thing to your attendee audience that's apart from any other event, that's really focused on them to give them the impressions value that they're looking for. Frankie had another great question, which is that they ended up pivoting their music concerts to a virtual event, gave the sponsorships for free to keep their sponsors engaged and to deliver value. How did they pivot back to monetary? So after giving away a free virtual sponsorship, which you may have some thoughts on doing that as well versus charging, how do you say, okay, now give us money again?
Well, I mean, we're all learning a new way to operate in the world. I think it's great if you can do that and give them value. I agree with that. I think, anything you can do to keep them engaged and get them on board. The biggest thing is understanding what's important to your sponsor. So if they're message is social justice, or we'll go with that for an example, if that's their message and you have the ability to reach all of these people and extend their message, then you can go back to them and say, hey, here's the value add, this is what we've done for you lately, a little recap report of what we've done for you and not charging you. And now the value of that is X. And then as we start moving into the new year, here's what we'd like to do. We understand your message is social justice. We're doing this, this, and this. We can extend your message. We think this value is not only, where we were at, but also even exceeding, because we're able to really help send this message out to these particular people, or, communicate this message in a way that's going to be really unique to you and create a new lane. One of the things that I've seen for bringing on new sponsorship funding, if you've done something for free, maybe you can create, I'll use Coke for an example. Maybe you can create a lane that's around sustainability, and now that becomes your purpose or your message for your music festival. And now that Coke brand has a really big incentive and reason to talk about sustainability. And now there's an entirely new thing for your live events and also for your virtual events to encourage recycling and sustainability. Now it's a whole new layer to the sponsorship that brings value to that brand and communicates their important message. And that is something that they will pay for. So being able to create those new layers and new levels, we're not going to go back to like the old sponsorship contract and just renew it. It's just different now. Their goals are different. So you have to be able to change your sponsorship contract, create these new lanes for employee engagement, mission, purpose, cause, and that's going to enable you to keep and grow your sponsorship funds.
That's a great answer. Yeah, very, very cool. So one thing I was just going to add is that, and I dropped it in the chat too, is that come at it from a position of power. Don't say, hey, we gave you a free thing. Say, hey, we comped you this value of a sponsorship, which is, we did that because we're a strong organization and wanted to help you get through COVID. Now we're going to ask for what it's worth again, which is only fair as a good partner.
Yep, absolutely. And that's a great point. Cool. Well, I appreciate this so much. Thanks for having the opportunity to share with the CalFest members. And again, my email's there. If you need anything, feel free to shoot me an email. I'm happy to share this little bit. We all have different experiences and we're all learning together. So I'm grateful for what you all do. And I think that the power of fairs, festivals, events, and venues is really, to grow and to strengthen our communities. We need that right now. And so you're very important in what you do. And, we all just need to come together and make that impact and show the brands that we are here to mean business and to play and to really extend their message to make our communities all better.
Absolutely. Thanks very much. Fantastic job, Vicki. Again, everyone, if you'd like to join our second and third webinars, there should be an email from Ruth. There's different emails going out there. You can also, we'll post it later today on the LinkedIn page as well. So thanks for coming. We'd love your feedback. And also please answer the survey that'll pop up right after this. We did actually have one more question. Do you have one more minute to hang on?
Sure, absolutely. My pleasure.
All right. So nonprofit holds a golf tournament and live auction every year. And a wine and food tasting event. There is a small event with about 300 to 500 people for that one. Do you have any advice for smaller, kind of not mass consumer events, but maybe more regional or community focused events?
That's a great question. Thanks for asking. We had the FundDuel platform had a small organization. They had a gala for 300 people, and they usually raised about $70,000 to $100,000, about 70 after you have to pay for a room and staff and security and all that. So they were not able to have their event, and they went online and did a virtual event. They really engaged their sponsors. They really engaged their board members. They engaged their normal attendees. And then when they did their live stream, they were up for about 3 weeks. They did their live stream event virtually. And instead of 300 people in a room, they had 6,000 people because of social sharing and from 10 different countries. And they were able to raise not $70,000, but they were able to raise $220,000 without all the hard costs. So, I would just say there are a lot of creative virtual ways to do a golf tournament. You could do a challenge of like, show us your best putt, and have people upload their photo or video and get votes or donations on it. And there are a lot of really fun ways that we can engage people virtually, and people love to to take video and show pictures, and when they share it socially, it can really be amazing. Also, Hot August Nights did something similar. You know, they're a bigger event, but when they went virtually, they had about 7,000 people join their virtual event. And then they had people from 15 different countries that just loved classic cars. So that's also a great tourism play. Now they have, you know, these people that they can communicate with and encourage them to come in for next year. So, you know, I would just encourage looking at the virtual events, finding ways, you know, it doesn't matter if you're small or large, all of these tips can apply to any size event. And, you know, if you've got a golf tournament and a gala that raises money for a good cause, if we can kind of put that together and have a promotion around it and encourage people to get involved socially and share it, then who knows what you can raise. It can be really fun. And it's just sometimes enough to keep the lights on for another year. So, you know, we're always happy to talk about that. I put my email in the chat